Hello and welcome. The new QSC K8.2 is here, and I'm just going to go through a few of the changes to this new model. First off, just want to go through what you get for your money. Obviously the speaker. You get a UK plug and you get a European plug. You also get a manual and still retains that 6-year warranty. Next up, this LED at the front incorporated in the new badge. This seems to stay on all the time. With the older QSCs, this LED would go out after maybe 30 seconds or a minute, I'm not too sure, but it used to go off and the unit would go into standby mode. This LED no longer goes off. Also, this LED no longer supports the limiter function that the older models did. This LED you can have off or on. Those are the two options. It no longer supports the limiter function when the limiter circuit cuts in if you're driving the speakers too hard. Now, if I turn the speaker to the rear, you will see the new display. This powers down, not off but just down, goes dim when it's in the standby mode, and as you can see you have the option to have the front and rear LED on, the rear LED only, or the front lights only. As you can see, you have the power button on there. If I put this into front only and load that, watch the blue light, power light, that goes off. Front and rear on, comes on. That is the new limiter light there over the power LED. Moving on. One feature I love about the .2 edition is the front of the speakers now have a membrane or some kind of fabric behind the grille. So you can no longer see the drivers. You can sometimes catch these in a bright light or sunshine, but now the front of the grille retains a lovely sleek look that I think is much more improved over the older models. You can't see the drivers at all. Much more power on the .2 series, 2000 watts peak as opposed to 1000 watts peak on the older models. Another thing that I love about this model is the knobs retain the stepped increments and notches on the dials. If you can hear this. So rather than just using guesswork, you know where you are on the dials by the notches. Also on this dial. Although it's not so much needed on this dial, more the gains. The original K8 had a fan. This one also has a fan, although it's not visible, and it's a variable speed fan. Meant to be improved on the older fan, but it's nice to know there's a fan still in this model and that it's not convection cooled. I have nothing against convection cooling, but it's nice to see a fan there. I think it might be more efficient, not too sure, but personally I'm pleased to see that the fan is still on this model. Just a quick look over the original K8, and you can see there are no latches on the XLRs, the inputs, whereas, as I mentioned earlier on, you have the latches. No more RCA input, which I'm a bit disappointed about, but just have to buy more leads. I had a lot more use for an RCA, but now that this model has a 3.5mm jack, apparently we have changed the way that we listen to music these days, and the 3.5mm jack is favourable over the RCA input. Bit disappointed about that, but as things move on, this is how things are going to change. This speaker's shape is totally different when it comes to the top and the back. The top is nearly completely flat, as is the underside. The original K8, the back used to taper off from the front. It looks a little off center, but only because this speaker is sinking into the sofa, but that is quite flat. I shall just get the K8 to show you the comparison between the two. Just a quick look at how the speakers differ when it comes to the top. They are both upright. I know they're sitting on the sofa where they can sink in, but they are both upright. And you can see the K8 tapering off at the top. The K8 looks deeper, but I've just measured them and they're exactly the same size. Look at the top of the K8.2, so flat. So you can stack these on top of each other. And the top of the original K8 tapering off. I think it looks a lot tidier, flat. K8 slant on the top. K8.2 a lot flatter. Also, if we look at the underside of the original K8, there's that big bulky foot that I mentioned, that large rubber foot. That's gone. Also that single pole mount, which is gone. This new K8.2 now has a wedge for monitor applications, live performances, whereas the older K8 didn't, just had the normal sides and no dedicated wedge for your live performances or a stage monitor application. The original K8 had 2 flying points on the sides. The new K8 has 1 flying point. Also, the handle has changed. Just that slender piece of aluminium, solid aluminium handle. And the original K8 had a bulkier handle. 2 flying points on the top, still retaining 2 flying points. This new K8 now has 2 pole hole mounts. Apparently the single pole mount on the K8 didn't accurately carry the speaker's center of gravity once it was tilted downwards. This new dedicated hole for the tilt downwards has the speaker's center of gravity now spot on. I mentioned earlier on about not being able to see the drivers on the new K8. With the old, when the light's reflecting on it, you can see the drivers I prefer the discreet look personally on the new K8s. Nice and sleek. The speaker's a bit more, if I could say, invisible, or just sleek and discreet. Reflections of light on this one just makes it more visible, or being able to see the drivers. I prefer the new discreet look. A lot less noise going on there. DSP on the original K8. The vocal boost and the flat option and the deep option. And normal for your low frequency driver, and using an external sub and making the K8 just cater for your higher frequencies. The DSP on the new K8.2 is a winner. The amount of flexibility you have with this new K8.2 just through the DSP alone is a reason to purchase this. There's so much there. Default, live bright, dance, stage monitor 1, stage monitor 2, acoustic guitar, bass amp, hand mic, head mic, studio monitor. There you go. There's a lot more you can do with the bass on this. Straight out of the box. And the higher frequencies. When I'm referring to the DSP on board this speaker, it's not just the way you can modify and alter the sound coming from the speaker depending on the acoustics of your venue and your location within that venue, which will always have an influence on your speaker's all-round performance. It's great to have a great sounding speaker to start off with, but it may sound terrible if you can't change the speaker placement location in certain venues. This is where you'll be crying out for extensive DSP, which this speaker has. But also how you can tailor this speaker to many other applications. Now, from a musician's point of view, now with that machined and designed wedge and the stage monitor application capabilities this speaker now has, and the tailored presets in the menus accompanying that, I am literally skimming over the surface for the purpose of this video about its capabilities. I uploaded a video with the sound comparison between the K8 and the K8.2. I found the K8.2 to be a lot more expressive in the mids and highs. The tracks that I played, you could hear the hammer hitting the strings on the piano. And in the video of the K8, the sound was a lot more muted. There wasn't much difference in the bass, but it sounded a lot more muted. There was a lot more expression and clarity and definition coming through the K8.2. I preferred that because just the fact that you could get more detail out of your highs and your mids. So with vocals, it would bring them out more, make them more pronounced and clearer. So that has to be a big improvement over the K8 when it comes to sound quality. As with the bass, all you have with the K8 is deep, so it's all or nothing. With the K8.2, there's so much flexibility in your DSP on the amount of bass that you can have there. Straight out of the box. So that's my review of the K8 and the K8.2. If you want to know what they sound like, you definitely have to have a demo. I recommend you have that demo. Your ears are different to mine. What you like the sound of might be totally different to me, my ears, and other people's ears. Other than that, I've uploaded a separate video of a sound comparison. Take a listen through decent headphones and see what you make of it. Other than that, have a good gig and thank you so much for watching.